This is the freestyle way.
Jo Canales, how are you?
All good, my friend. Thank you for having me. It's an honor for me.
Of course, what a pleasure. I mean, I guess it was a little bit over a month ago. I actually had a dream of Formula One, and I woke up the next morning and I was just kind of going through my Instagram, and I don't usually look at the people who follow me, but I saw your name and I was like, oh, who's this guy? And then I was like, rings a bell. The name rings a bell. And then I saw your association with Formula One. And I was like, oh, let me just message him. And then you reminded me that we met in San Francisco at San Francisco CrossFit many years ago. And that was just really, really cool. So to be connecting with you is very special. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly 10 years ago, I went there. I was like starting in the CrossFit world, maybe somewhere before a year of getting involved in CrossFit. And I had a family trip to San Francisco, so it was beautiful to be there. I was following you and Kelly with the San Francisco CrossFit, so obviously I tried to be there as many days as possible in those few days that I spent in San Francisco, and then yeah, like a month ago, I was talking to one of my coaches of the certification I'm doing, and she just mentioned you. She said you should look at what Paoli is doing now and his content. So I said, man, I have to reach him, and here we are now.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, life is fascinating how it kind of weaves in and out, and you connect with people, and yeah, just special things happen. So it's very cool. So I kind of want to make this conversation very much around your arc and your progression as a coach. So let's just take it back to your origin as an athlete and then becoming a coach. Yeah, where did you start as an athlete, and what was it that led you to become fitness coach, strength and conditioning coach, performance coach now?
Yeah, well, for me, it was all my life was surrounded by sports, different ones. I have a twin brother, so we were competing every day at every task that we had. So it was something that came natural for me. It was on a daily basis, and then well, here in Mexico, it's pretty common that you want to be a football player. So we were there trying to be there, and then switching, coming back and forth between football and tennis. So we were doing those two sports a bit more consistent, but every time looking for something else to do, some whatever was related to sports, skating, paddle, many sports. And then it came a time somewhere around 16, 17 years, we started going to the gym. And after a bit, maybe a couple of years, I had another chance to try to be a professional player, a football player. And then we did, actually, the both of us. And so I played football for 6 or 7 years. And there was this time around 2012, you in Mexico, you only can go from one team to another or get a contract if you were elected in a draft, a 2 days draft, in which you cannot be there. It's pretty different from the US, like the NFL draft or so on. It was just like a meeting with owners of the teams and managers from players, and they trade players for 2 days, and that was it. But you as a player couldn't be there. I hadn't that many minutes like to be spotted, so I ended up with no team for that season. And then I looked one of my friends doing some overhead squats on a Facebook post, and I said, okay, I'll try to go and see what this guy's doing. So I had my first CrossFit session that day, and I just loved it, and it was pretty intense. So I think to myself, I'm going to do this so I keep in shape, until I get another soccer team, football team, and that never happened. But then
Wow.
I started doing it, and then my friend had something like a kind of a franchise here in Mexico, and then he said, "You know what? I'm opening my own CrossFit gym, and I would like you to join me." And then I started. With him in November 2012. It was really good, but we had that CrossFit maybe for a month because he went to the US to LA to coach Chivas USA soccer team. So he decided to sell everything he had here to be fully focused over there. So we sold that one for maybe a month after we open or two, something like that. And then at the
Wow.
beginning of 2013, I went to US again to do some tryouts over there for a couple of months. Ended up coming back to Mexico, and then I opened my gym May 2013, and I still have it now. It's been 10 years, and also in that year is when I went to San Francisco. So that was like my starting point, switching from football to CrossFit and from athlete to coach.
Wow. What's the gym in Mexico called?
So right now we are Lomas Training. We are not an affiliate anymore. Sadly, in Mexico, you don't get that many support from CrossFit, and I from what I researched many years ago, they had some issues about getting registered in Mexico. Some guys took some advantage over there, and then things didn't went that well. And also, sadly, I said sadly because I know all the benefits, but you still have that stigma here in Mexico about CrossFit, how can get you hurt, or as a woman, it gets you bigger than what you want and all that stuff. And we didn't saw like a reason why to keep going as a CrossFit affiliate. So we ended up doing that, and now we're called Lomas Training, and we do something. So we follow the methodology of CrossFit, but we took out some of the more complex movements, and we have also a community that is not focused on competing or going over there. We have a lot of teenagers, a lot of fathers, parents, grandparents that come with us, and they just want to be held, have a nice community, enjoy, and sweat a bit, and we're doing exactly that.
That's amazing. So yeah, you have a community of life athletes, and I think it's pretty common to see people drop their affiliate with CrossFit, not only in Mexico, but it's happened in Spain. It's happened in many countries. It happens in the U.S. as well. And I think CrossFit is going through a big reform because I think that the original business model doesn't necessarily carry over to what people are trying to do today. I'm curious about your thinking, because when you got into coaching, you were probably, as an athlete, you just had the material kind of fresh. You had a way of preparing to play soccer or football. Uh, but what was it like becoming a coach? What did you start to notice right away that maybe you were good at, or maybe that you were missing? And how did you navigate that? And what was the focus originally in terms of like becoming the coach? What were you trying to do?
Yeah. So first of all, yeah, it came a bit easy because I was completely used to getting up early, being on time, getting to training like effortless because you were doing the sport you love. So if you have to be 2 hours before whatever, traveling, buses, whatever it takes, you'll be there enjoying it. It was like there was like a no effort or obligation to do so. So that came naturally for me to be there at the gym, coaching, and then training, and then coaching again, and then maybe doing a second session at the evening. That was good. And also I found this big community part, and so I had at that time I had two partners that opened the gym with me. So we were used to teach maybe 4 classes in the morning. Then we had breakfast somewhere around our gym, and then we went back home, and in the evening repeat that. And we started basically right away with a beautiful community. We like organized like a football team, and we were all together playing at night. And then there was maybe every day we had something extra, CrossFit extra box going on, dinners, people coming home, getting lunch, parties, you call it. So this switching was kind of easy in that side, and also because I was training a lot, because I had in my mind that I need to be in shape in case I could go back to football. I was training pretty good and a lot, so I was feeling and going through the workouts with our live athletes, as you say, call them. And now I am adopting your concept about live athletes. I love
I
that
like
one.
it. Yeah, take it and run with it. I just made it up.
Yeah, loved it. So I was going with them, and I think I was or I am pretty good with sharing and talking to them about what are they feeling and what they are supposed to go through during the session or the workout. So, and because I was doing the same, it was also pretty easily. So I'll say practice-wise, it came easily. Vocation-wise, it was another thing, because I was still trying to be the athlete and maybe wasn't that keen on getting into being a coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common thing that you see in early coaches. They come from sport, or they've had a lifetime of training, and it seems like an easy shift over. But if you're not done with your sports career, your athletic career, so for you football, and then you're coaching, you're kind of straddling two worlds. So you're not the athlete fully, you're not the coach fully. Do you remember the moment where you became a full-time coach, and that's what you focused on first? You became coach first, athlete second?
Yeah, good question. Because ever since that 2012, I became a full-time coach. I maybe did some tryouts over there every now and then, couple of times, but it was like a week or something. So full-time coach I was since straight away. But the moment that I fully got into it, maybe it was somewhere around 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And it is because at that moment, my friends who remained playing football, professional football in Mexico, they contact me for me to coach them.
Mm.
So I took that role in I don't want to say serious, but in a different way, like with professional athletes. And that took that. Now that I recall, that gave me the sensation and the feeling of competing again.
Mm.
So because from 2013 to that point, I wasn't even like maybe getting that much into watching sports either, because I was like kind of in my own fight with not being an athlete, and maybe it doesn't want to look at it that much. And in that moment that I started coaching them, and I was like competing with them in their team, that came back again. So maybe that was the time in which I felt that I was being a full-time vocational time coach.
That makes sense, and I love that you distinguished early on that professionally you were full-time, but vocation-wise you weren't until this started happening. And I don't know if you felt this, but I first of all I resonate a lot with this idea of when you left or when you were leaving football that you didn't really watch maybe that much. I did the same thing with gymnastics. When I retired from gymnastics, I didn't want to see any gymnastics. I wanted to see all these other things. That was more interesting. I didn't want to see what I was missing, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, I think it
yeah.
goes somewhere with.
But then the other thing that happened to me when I got into fitness coaching, I went from gymnastics to action sports and then got into fitness, was I had this feeling of the performance coach or the fitness coach, the strength and conditioning coach, as like a bottom tier. I always saw it as like, oh, it's less than the head coach. I had this feeling. Did you ever fight with this feeling of being kind of behind the scenes, no longer maybe the protagonist on the field?
Yeah, you might think that it goes that way, but no, it wasn't for me, because I was extremely excited and motivated, because I felt like I belong again to it.
Like a
So it
team?
was good. Yeah, like being part of the world that I love. I don't know. It's funny that you ask for about that, because yesterday I was thinking about that. I was thinking that so you have all these reasons and of why you do some stuff, but there's always a behind and behind and behind and behind a deeper reason and the root of what you do. And I was thinking about that yesterday, and I thought I just wanted to belong to the world that I love, to still be part and be meaningful and apport to that world. And I think as soon as I clicked with it, then I started doing it. I felt like I didn't feel behind the scenes. I felt I was part of it, and that was it. It was pretty good. So a lot of times you hear about, like in the industry world, about how do you make all your employees to feel like they belong, and like in Spanish you say se ponen la camiseta. It's like they wear the
jersey
institution they have next year. It's like the jersey, you have your shield on your left side. So how do you do that in the industry world? And for me it was kind of I don't know how you can do that, but now being a coach and being behind them, and I said I felt like now I'm part with, like, for example, with Red Bull. So roles wise in the garage, well, you have all these mechanics and engineers that they make everything happen. And if you think about responsibility, obviously they have a bigger one that what I get to do over there. But for me, the thing that I have to do, and if you compare it with the other ones, it may be smaller or not. For me, is something that I take fully responsibility, and I think I found a lot of meaning of what I do, and just by feeling that I belong there, and that I can be part of it, and I adopt something that matters and worth it. That just makes me like feel that I have the jersey on, and so that like get me that answer from what I was thinking. And so no, I don't think like I never felt that about like being behind the scenes, and I always felt it was really meaningful, so it was good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's something that is the sooner you can become aware of that, the easier things become. Because I just remember my ego as an athlete wanted to be in the spotlight. And then when you are part of a team, and I think this is maybe also like the difference between team sports and individual sports. but the fact that you already had that idea of belonging to a team, what it meant to be a part of something greater than you, but you having to be the best version of yourself in order for the team to do well is powerful. And without jumping too far ahead, something that I've known of Formula One my whole life, but I haven't really followed it until just recently, and I guess it's just something that occurred. Maybe it's the Netflix popularity of Drive to Survive or whatever it may be. But you just see it more. And something that I've noticed is that the role of the performance coach, like your role with Checo Perez, for example, is a very significant one. It's kind of like you are a very big part of that that team. It's kind of like you're the last person that touches him before he gets in the car. It seems like, and it seems like you travel everywhere. So it's almost like a lead coach position, and I'm always fascinated by how those things occur and where those happen, because when I see a role like that, like yours right now, I realize how significant performance coaching is, and how significant it is to just have the body prepped, just like a machine that is not only physical but also mental, up until the very moment that you release the athlete, or the race starts, or the competition starts, and that being a pivotal component of the whole machine. And to become aware of that sense of belonging, very powerful. And the fact that you had it even before you got into Formula One is pretty awesome and special. Any thoughts on that?
You defined that perfectly. Yeah, you defined that perfectly. It's exactly what my role is to have the athlete, to get the athlete to perform at his best every time he's on the car, and to do so, it's like the whole team is taking care of everything related to the car, the performance of the car, and even Checo, the driver, with their engineers, they're discussing intensely every day about how they can make the car better. So everyone, even the driver, they're all taking care and focusing on how do we get the car to the best version that we can use and win. So that's what happens for a team, and that's why it's still a team sport, even if you have just a driver driving his car, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so my role is to get the driver into its best shape possible, and to be at his best version, as you said, just right before he gets into the car and starts racing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's powerful. And I would like to dive into that, because I think it's fascinating just to know the ins and outs of how you think about your role as a coach, especially within Formula One. But I would like to go back to a little bit of the CrossFit methodology. When you got into CrossFit, of course, you followed the methodology, and that works really well. And it's actually a very simple, elegant way of teaching fitness. Do you remember a moment when you started working with certain people that were reaching out to you, like, for example, Checo Perez, that you had to adapt your methodology to fit the individual? And if so, what was the first thing that you started changing? Where were you getting information? What was that process like? And have you gotten to a point where now you have your own style of coaching that you feel like, oh yeah, this is my thing that I use for football. This is my thing that I use for Formula One. This is my thing that I use for life athletes. What's that like? Can you talk to me about that a little bit?
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, at the beginning, I said, okay, CrossFit works. This is what we should all be doing. And because even when I started, this transition 2013, we were playing football in the evening, and I even felt that I was fitter than when I was only training with my team. And I said, like, man, every athlete should be doing something like this, and they could improve whatever they're doing. But then you get into athletes and their sports and whatever, the specifics they need for their task. And then you also understand that they have different, like, even intensity needs, loads, and also because of what they do, like for a driver that is sitting every time he's doing his sport, it's sitting. So you basically take the legs, the lower body out of the equation. You will have some restrictions with hips and mobility over there. Why? Because they're competing in a sitting position, and so that's going to happen. So if you try to get them into CrossFit right away, squatting, deadlifting, cleaning, whatever, you'll have a rough time over there, and they'll have a rough time. They won't feel and you can even get them hurt or something because they're not used to that, and they're not. So you cannot have this broad domain, and you cannot go randomly every day and mixing and doing as a CrossFit methodology, because you need some consistency with some stuff. You need to put those specifics in a sweet spot, and then with the weaknesses you start to work, but bit by bit, and trying to add some. So for me, like, I have now 6 years working with Checo, and until last year we haven't had this kind of CrossFit, CrossFit-ish workouts inside our sessions, and now we're trying to add something like that, and it's working, but it's a process that we've been going through it day by day and year by year, and now we can add some other stuff, but it also it's part of a process, and you need to be very aware of what you're doing. The difference between Formula One and football, for example, is for Formula One, for a driver, I'm like you said, like the leading coach. I'm the team that it's getting him into the best shape possible. For a football player, they have their own team. They have their games, their matches. They travel with them, and you only do like the accessory workouts. You do the specifics for each footballer and what they want to improve, but you have to be aware that that won't only happen if you don't mess with every other stuff, that because the main thing over there is their team, and for them to compete and win.
Makes sense.
You are just adding a part, and here is the opposite.
Yeah. I think one of the that's beautifully said. I think one of the things that I just noticed in my career as a physical performance coach was that if somebody came that was a football player, it was more about giving them movement awareness. So it was just helping them understand how to move in a way that was safer, stronger, and transferable to their sport. The other thing was if you're a football player and you're playing 2 45-minute like, what do you call it, times, or what do you call them, half times, halves, halves of a game. Well, that they have to be able to move for that entire time, and to be able to recover as quickly as possible when they get their breaks. But I feel like that one is almost like more obvious when it comes to CrossFit methodology. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we do some high intensity, we get you that baseline, we give you some movement awareness, you're good. But Formula One is a completely different beast. It feels like Formula One. Well, first of all, I mean, when you got into Formula One, and maybe you met Checo, he had already been racing since he probably was a kid, maybe karts or whatever.
Yeah.
And so his body had adapted to being able to race.
Right.
But I'm curious, because I guess one of the things that a racer needs is to have the ability to hold a certain posture, a position, so that they can drive the car, move their arms, legs in a way where they can accelerate, decelerate, turn. And I'm making up this theory here. This is just my thesis. But they need to have this ability to be as as stable and composed as possible while driving this car and resisting these forces so that their nervous system is open to react to the moment. And it's yeah, is that accurate?
Completely accurate, yeah. Yeah, so you're trying exactly to do so, to get all these physical requirements, but trying, so as we've discussed this recently, is you want your body to control everything that's happening, but you don't want to feel stressed about it because you need to react, think, decide, and be completely aware and in the moment. So you want your body not to disturb you. So you need to put it in the best shape possible so it can work by itself while you can drive the car.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I imagine. And something that I always say is that you want the athlete to be as unconscious in their movement as possible so that they can focus or be conscious on that which needs their attention. And in this case, it's almost like the mind of the driver needs to be able to plug into the car, but it can only plug in if the body is in a position that allows it to plug in.
Correct.
So
yeah,
it's very interesting. So what am I getting at here? What I'm getting at is when you think about, let's just focus now on motorsports and Formula One and that which you've learned with Checo, because I think it's really interesting. Is where do you start with somebody like Checo? Is it in developing more stamina? Is it in priming the nervous system? Is it in doing movement patterns that allow the nervous system to be woken up and primed for driving? Is it more mental, emotional first? Where do you go?
So I'm thinking about 3 different areas regarding the physical part, the competitiveness part, and it's, of course, you need that stamina, that strength, that stability to get the body in the place that we already discussed. You also need these specifics, like in every sport, that like gymnastics is one of the more that demands the most out of the athlete. But like for swimmers, you think about them and the shape their body gets it's because of what their sports demands. And for a swimmer, for example, by swimming, their body adapts to it. For the driver, you don't get to adapt that much. So you need to work on those, like, for example, neck strengthening. So yeah, you being in the car, you maybe get used to those external forces getting into you and you trying to resist them, but it's not that you're gonna get as strong as you need only by being there. You also need to work for it to be stronger than those external forces. So you have, like, the first part we already discussed. This one, the second one, the specifics, you need to get those like on point, and then you get to all these reaction, coordination, drills parts. Sorry, you missed me there.
No, you're good.
You get into those reaction drills, cognitive drills, and I also try to get those in a fatigue moment, and he's also speaking as he's driving.
Right, he's communicating with his engineer.
Yeah, you're communicating, and then you might want to go out for a run by yourself, and then the next day do the same exact run, but with a partner, and discussing whatever you want to discuss during the whole session, and it's a completely different monster. So you need to get all those points into the equation, and then try to get him into that into the best possible shape regarding to all of those to be able to perform.
Yeah. Let's get a little technical. How long does a race on average last?
Yeah, so if a race lasts 2 hours, then it's over. So you always have a specific number of laps regarding the distance of the lap. They decide the number of laps they're doing, and then if you don't get to all of those laps in 2 hours, then the race is over. So if you have a lot of yellow or red flags in the car, the race stops and you get to the 2 hours, then it's over. So that's the maximum amount of time you'll be competing.
So you maximum amount of time will be 2 hours. The average race, what does it last?
Yeah, hour and a half, somewhere over there between hour and a half, hour 45. You're over there. It's definitely more than an hour. So I'd say 90 minutes.
Okay, so 90 minutes. And they weigh the drivers before and after, because I assume there's a lot of water loss. And sometimes you're racing in really hot places. I mean, if you're racing in Singapore, that is humid.
Yeah.
And even though the race is at night, it must be very intense. So is that something that you take into consideration, the environment and how that's going to affect them?
Definitely. It's one of the most important parts of what we need to get in and solve in advance. Like, as you said, Singapore is a tough one. But then you have Austin and Miami that they're also hot, they're also tough, and they're not night races. They're day races. So they get extremely tough. And yeah, so you need to be aware of your hydration before and during the race. They have a water tank in the car. And then, but you have it, that's perfect. But then you have to remind yourself to be hydrated during the race, apart from all the other aspects you're thinking and doing it that we already discussed. So yeah, it's it definitely is also one of those parts that we're going through. The weight, you said, we need to get a consistent weight every week at every race, so that also helps the car.
Right.
So nutrition also is a pretty important part. The driver gets weighted from Friday to Sunday 2 times a day, so you can start getting some patterns over there, and you start to know where will your driver be. Also, if you have 2 races in a row, back to back, or triple headers, 3 races in a row, you know that you will decrease that the starting week, the weekend starting weight will be lower in the week 2 and also lower in week 3. So you have to try to compensate that those days between races. Then you're not training that much for to getting into a better shape. You're trying to recover as much as you can for the next race. So and to be on the way you need, and to be fully recovered, and to have the proper nutrients and the proper hydration for him to react and respond. Again, pretty good, and then in the best possible way every race. So those are the points that you get to consider, apart from only just working out.
Right. So it's almost like when it comes to that side of the physical training, it's not so much about exposure training. It's not like you need to do sauna training or something and then do a sim in a in a sauna. It's more so we need to focus on your hydration, your nutrition, and the way that you're timing it. Do you have a standard protocol for helping with hydration and then managing that with travel? Because you're flying all the time and you're going across time zones, which messes you up, and then sleep plays a huge factor. What's the protocol for? Let's just talk about hydration first. What do you do in terms of hydration?
Yeah, so for hydration, what I'm suggesting always is we have a protocol for week race. We start we try to bring it a bit higher when we know it's this kind of races like a Singapore one, a hotter one. We have this hydration protocol. We start over on Thursday media day. We start with it, and I have like a whole week protocol, and that marks my hydration. But we also have it for flights, as you said. Only by being on the plane you get dehydrated, so we try to avoid caffeine over there. We try to get also the hydration for the flight, and then so for hydration we go for those two, like during flights and traveling and all that stuff, and then track wise, and we try to be ready for, like, we start a day before he gets into the car. Obviously, from traveling to those race days, it's not like you stop in the middle and you don't do anything else, but we try to focus in those two critical times that we need to be sure we are getting covered.
Makes sense. And for the hydration, do you use any types of salts, or is it just
Yeah.
the water?
No salts, electrolytes. We change between what we do depending the day, the session, what's going on, time durations. But yeah, we're going between electrolyte, salts, and regular water.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we go through all of them.
That makes sense. And then in terms of the time zone changes, is there anything in particular that you do, light exposure or something like that, trying to adapt sleep before you even get to your destination? How much do you think about that? How do you manage that? What's that experience like?
We haven't done something specifically with light exposure, but what we do is we try to get into the time zone we're going a bit ahead, especially in those long flights and long time zone changes, like Australia, Singapore, those, especially because we're coming from Mexico. It's a longer and a bigger switch, like from the guys that are coming from Europe, let's say. So in those long flights, we try to get there a couple of days before, a couple more days than the regular days we will normally be there. So we have plenty more time to recover. And for me, as soon as we get into the plane, I start looking at the times from the place we're going. So I'm trying to think about that from that point onwards. So sleeping, obviously, eating. If we need some caffeine, we will add it. If we need some melatonin also, and we start working with all of those factors, and we're trying to get into that time zone as soon as possible. Then you need to make some efforts also. It's like trying to stay awake is sometimes it's more beneficial. And also getting into a routine, like for example in Singapore, we go to the gym extremely late night. And Singapore, it's a really curious one because it's a night race, but it also stays with European time zone for like for broadcasting and all of that. The race remains with the normal European schedule, but in whatever time it is in Singapore. So you go to bed extremely late, you wake up extremely late as well, and you live in a different time zone, even if you're not in there, if I explain myself.
Yeah,
So
you
that
explain
one
yourself
is
perfectly.
a tricky, funny one. And it also have this kind of like a excitement part. Like, it's fun to be in like a different kind of dimension for to say something.
Exactly. Yeah, it must be pretty surreal with
Surreal,
the
correct.
race week. Yeah, I find that fascinating. Now, let's talk a little bit about kind of some of the like light drills that you do. What is this for? Is this reflex? Is this priming? Is this something that conditions? Yeah, what are some of those drills, and why do you use them?
Yeah, it's reflexive reaction, is speed, and it's also decision making. So for me, it's like uh, an opportunity to get him into a kind of reactions and decision making similar to what he's gonna do in the car. So we will do that like in training week. We'll do that just to get better, but during a race weekend, I try to apply that to Checo for two different reasons. The first one obviously is reaction, getting fast, getting accurate, hit the light that it's turning on. But then I get into a different kind of drills in which he has some other colors distracting, and also I will change the instructions, and now you try to hit blue lights with the right hand, red lights with left hand, and then I'm also speaking with him about first one is about reaction speed and just hitting the light. Now I need you to get the right decision. So sometimes if you want to hurry over there, your decision won't be the correct, and you have a miss. And sometimes even by just focusing on making the best decision, you'll go faster. So I'll try to mix in between those two different. Even you're doing a drill, a similar drill that is this light reaction. You're working into different tools that he will later need on the car.
Right. So it's almost like the transferability of that is, let's say, if you're driving, there are rules for driving. So if you have a certain line, you have to obey by the rules of who has the line and whatnot. And that is something that is structured. So maybe your first kind of drill is getting you primed to do that. But then it's being able to respond or react to a situation that maybe shows up on the track. So now you're trying to say, okay, you're doing the same thing under the rules, but now you're going to receive instructions that are unexpected potentially, and you need to react accordingly.
Yeah.
And that I think is really interesting, because I think as human beings, one of the things that we struggle the most with is making decisions in the moment that are actually going to produce good results. So the fact that you have drills like just playing with lights that translate into a better decision making in the moment in the car on race day is interesting to me. And you said something that's very powerful here, which is this idea of not only being able to focus, but not react to distractions, which is this idea of response inhibition. And it's how well can you shut out everything around you to be able to focus better. So it seems like that is also a big part of what you work on.
A really big one, and I think it's one of the main strengths with Checo. This way he can get focused, this tunnel vision, and getting close and shut from everything else. That's a really good one for him. I think this sports makes you that way. But also, we're trying to be there. Yeah, you want to respond to what you need to, but also not to respond to these many other distractions that will come. And all of that is happening while you still need to react extremely quick, extremely fast, because you're 300 kilometers per hour trying to be the fastest and trying to get there. So it's pretty interesting and exciting, because everything's happening at the same time, and you need to get everything else sorted out. And as I said before, and your physical needs to be in the best shape possible that doesn't interfere with any of those things going on.
Yeah, very interesting. So I have so many questions around this, but so for example, for someone like Checo, before you got into doing more like the CrossFit-y stuff now, was it trunk stability first, then neck, shoulders, and hips? I mean, for example, I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but sometimes to take certain turns, you have to hit the brakes in a way where you apply 120 kilos of pressure on the brakes.
The brakes.
Is that true, or did I make that up?
I don't know the exact amount of it, but yeah, they have to do a pretty good effort to press the brakes. But we've worked with the trunk stability. You could also take that one as part of the specifics of this sport, because obviously trunk stability and core strength and everything we know about it is like key to every role. But here I've tried to explain this before as, imagine you're getting also this hour and a half or 2 hours into a plank position that you have to hold the whole time.
Wow.
So it's not in a plank, but the way you're seated and the way you need to get all your body contract and stabilized for those 2 hours while driving. You're kind of holding this upside plank per se. So yeah, it's definitely a big element.
Yeah, it seems like it. And then in terms of neck exercises, is it primarily neck, or is it shoulders and neck, or is it shoulders first then neck? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think primarily neck, but obviously shoulders are part of it. Traps, you need to get obviously a pretty strong upper back. But yeah, I'll go for neck specifics and try to get it done, and then sometimes we will mix it with some other stuff. And if we're doing that, we're mixing, I'll make sure we're getting those traps, shoulders, upper back into it, because you have the whole chain working and getting to make the effort all together. And there are sometimes, depending on where we are around the season, in which we will work for the neck only, and we always want to have this sensation that we work the neck through the week before race day, so he's ready, and it's also part of this routine you are doing. No, so we sometimes, when we do that, like let's say in race week, we won't go as hard, and maybe we won't get all those other muscles and chain involved, because you just want to have the sensation, the feeling, the activation of it, but you don't want to obviously get a fatigue a couple of days before.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then let's talk about mindset. I'm curious about how do you manage your mindset as a coach to be available and ready and primed, and what does your preparation look like to be able to travel this much, because you're on the road a lot?
Yeah, it's tricky on the personal side. It took a while for me to get into a perspective that I can be satisfied with, aligned with, and happy with it. So, well, right now I think I have a pretty good conscience about what I can get out of this, and it's like I recently heard Ben Berger talking about this, and the routine for the people that is traveling is not to have a routine. You get used to that, no, to getting flights, to getting them delayed, to change time zones, to all those things that you will say no in a regular routine. Those all distractors and the external factors that will affect your routine. Well, this is the routine here. So first of all, it's being aware of it. Then know that you will be able to do some stuff, but then you won't be able to do some others. And so there will be times that you don't get to choose what you can eat, but then also you don't want to starve. And then so you take on those, but then you have to be pretty strict in the ones you can. About working out, that's another matter, because so for race days, they normally start pretty early. So you maybe see 2 sessions on TV, the 2-hour session, but you get into the track pretty early in the morning. Then you get out extremely late. And then after that, you got some recovery work to do with your driver back at the hotel. So, and while you are at the track, you cannot obviously get an hour for you to work out. But sometimes at the end of the day, when the drivers are in their briefings or whatever, you can get to the track and run. So you need to make sure you got those in. And some other times you just need to know that you will need to be, if we're going early, maybe earlier to get a workout. And then a friend of mine that was traveling with us once told me in Russia, done is better than perfect. So maybe I was sometimes calculating, and I said, man, I won't have an hour for me to work out. And yeah, but I have 7 minutes. Okay, please, let's go. And you did something, So start to getting aware of that. Then also that there will be some days that you also need to face it and say, man, I will get 2 more hours of sleep today, and we won't get the workout in. And it's not bad. It's okay. It's because you want to be in shape. You want to be good with yourself, but you're also performing over there. So maybe those 2 hours will be more beneficial for you into quality that you also need to be completely focused and ready for whatever happens. So you start to dance with all those things. And then also for me it was pretty important, and it wasn't easy to be aware that maybe the physical shape that I would love to be won't be able to be there. I won't be able to be there the whole year. And also trying to be good with it. Last year I took it as a extremely strict pre-season, and I did perfectly. I was wherever I wanted to be, but as soon as we started traveling, I dropped everything, and for the half of the year I was like in the opposite place of where I started and of where I wanted. And this year I maybe didn't get into that hard, strict like a routine in the first months of the year, but I've been trying to, whatever I did over there, just trying to improve it by a tiny bit throughout the year. If I feel that I'm moving forwards, or at least getting into where I am, or if I go back, because this is something cyclic, you won't be always getting into a better shape, at least not in this routine. If you can control it, and in the big picture, I'm getting some improvement. Now I felt good with myself in understanding, this might not be the shape I would love to be, but it's part of what I'm doing and it's working, so it's good.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a hard one. I remember when I was traveling a lot for work, it was very hard to maintain the body, and I didn't have non-season and off-seasons. It was always destroyed. I hear you there. And in terms of your mentality, is there a conversation that happens in your head? So, for example, if you're in your room and this is a race day or a quality day, whatever it may be, is there something that you do that puts you in a position where you say, okay, I'm game day ready. I'm ready to now be who I need to be to maximize, in this case, Checo's performance. Do you do some kind of routine in your head?
Yeah. So the first one for me was to be ready before it's needed. So this I don't exactly remember this paradox or whatever about those two guys cutting a tree, and one is straight ahead smashing it, and the other one go and get the axe in shape, and with a couple of blows it's down. So I took that one into myself. So it's, let's make sure we have everything that we might or might not need ready, be able to respond to whatever happening, because there are a lot of things that you wouldn't think that might happen that will happen. So just by being ready to all of those, being sure that I have every tool around me ready, that's one of the biggest parts for myself. The other one, I think I'm good at I forgot the word
in Spanish.
También en español.
En español también.
Improvisar, to improvise.
Yeah, to improvise.
So for me, I think I don't know, I get into the zone, man. Like when you used to be an athlete, it's time to deliver, and you know, music in the morning. Checo has these couple of songs about this is life, enjoy it, and if you put that in perspective, it's always okay. It's good to be here, you know. And then it's also this excitement for myself, like, man, I'm doing this. I'm part of me, and like as simple as doing the warm-up routine. We do the warm-up routine, then I go out and go to the garage to have everything else ready, and that gives me like this amount of yeah, man, we did this part good, and that was my go time, and I did it good, and now I'm here ready to support in any way I can. And then getting into the grid, getting into the quali phases and all of that is like, I'm ready to whatever I can do to put 1% from myself to help these guys that they're doing an amazing job, the whole team, no? So I get into that that like I'm competing as I told you. It's part of, I'm doing what I love to do, which is compete and to deal with this kind of times and situations. Sorry, and I also now enjoy it so much. I enjoy a lot being there, and it was really funny because in my first years in Formula One, a friend of mine told me, "Man, you always look scared in the pictures," and it was because you're running against the clock. You have to do some stuff, and if you think about it that way, and whatever you do, just don't screw what they've been working for so long. You can obviously get scared, but now I managed to turn that into I'm ready. That's why I want to be one step ahead. I'm completely ready to whatever is going to happen, and there are going to be some stuff happening that we're not ready, but I will be able to respond properly and to deliver to whatever I have to do. And just by knowing that and being excited about that challenge makes me enjoy it so much. I find myself so many times looking at Checo going out of the garage, or even inside the garage waiting for the mechanics to fix anything that's happening, and finding myself enjoying that moment and thinking, man, this is so fun and exciting to be part of.
Right. Yeah, that must feel very special, like when you have a good outcome and you get to celebrate, or you get to witness the transitions in a way where you're like, wow, I'm actually aware, not just preoccupied to do my job. That's really cool. In the beginning, did Checo lead you? Did you have a mentor, or were you just figuring it out? How has your relationship changed? Do you communicate now telepathically?
Yeah. So as you guys know or not, Checo has two coaches, myself and Xavi. Marcos is Spanish as well, and obviously he taught me about my way around in the garage. So regarding that, yeah, he was, and he's still part of the team with myself, and he showed me the way around. And with the Checo, yeah, it's not like telepathy, but you can be a step ahead of what he might be thinking, wanting, needing, changing, because he changed a lot. Yeah, so yeah, and after 6 years of being there and watching what's happening, you get a sense of what might come. So yeah, it's not telepathy, but it's kind of right.
Yeah, and I bring that up because I think there are a lot of people here listening that are coaches, and one of the things that they're always working on is their relationship with their athletes or the people they work with. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting. So what's the future look like for you? What's the goal? What are you doing right now that you're very excited about, maybe outside of Formula One and within your career as a coach and business person too?
Yeah, so one of the agreements I did with myself when I started to coach athletes, it was I either coach an athlete or I either get into something that I can study, grow, and learn. And so I've been doing that every year. And right now I'm doing this big certification that is pretty related to Formula One. And I think that I've been finding a lot of myself is that I'm getting more aware of who I am, what I like, my emotions, and all that part that I intentionally decide to set aside while I was working on my technical strengths, my coaching, my athlete, my strength, my physical skills that you might think that will be more important. And in a way, at least at the beginning, you're getting hired for that. But once you get into performance training and having an athlete into his peak, you cannot do that only by physically stuff. The mental and the emotional part are the most important ones. So yeah, for myself, the future is getting better at that. It's not. I don't think the word is better. Just more aware. I think it's from the emotional part. It's not about improvement as you might feel it in competition. It's about awareness, consciousness, and figuring out. Right. It's like a different kind of also exciting journey.
Yeah. I'm so glad you're saying this because for the last maybe getting close to a decade now, maybe 9 years, I've been talking about this idea of emotional intelligence. And in the world of sports, a lot of people don't have time to talk about their emotions. And it's kind of like, oh, screw your emotions. That's a bad thing. But in reality, the emotions is that which allows you to see the world. And the awareness, like you said, when you can see what you're feeling, you can actually change it or channel it. So if you're angry, you can channel that anger into something, frustration. If you're sad or down, you can channel that into something. And learning that application is massive. So to hear you say that to me is like, yes, go. You lead the charge. Bring
Thanks,
that to the table. Very, very cool.
Yeah, definitely. You can drive yourself through your sport, through any of the emotions that can make you get there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing that I talk about a lot is this idea of emotional variability actually being healthy. You need to experience all the emotions because it allows you to get the perspective. And a lot of people are scared of feeling those things because they think if their emotions are changing, their performance is going to change. And that's not necessarily true. I can actually improve.
Nice.
Yeah, I love it. How can we support you? Is there anything we can do to support any venture you have, anything that you're working on? I know life is good right now, but what can we do for you?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Nobody asked that. There's nothing that comes to my mind right now. Obviously, follow me. Having your support is always nice. Getting in touch like we did this time, and watching all these people. It's also pretty satisfying now seeing how many people is concerned and watching whatever we're doing. I have this beautiful experience last year. There's a big Checo group, Checo fan group in Mexico, and they are really, really big community. And I remember one day, I don't know if Mexican GP or somewhere over that time of the year, they took their time just to write me, text me, and say, "Hey, thank you for your job." But there were, I don't know how many, but so many guys, so many beautiful people saying, "Hey, man, thank you for what you do." It was extremely comforting, and it also puts in perspective that you might think you're just only training this guy, that it's playing a sport and it's fun and people gets to watch it on TV, but the way that the people that follows gets involved, it's much more significant that only that. No, for all these people that talk about that way and get only that perspective of sports, then you get to see how sports becomes an extremely important part of a lot of people, and it's pretty very comfortable to be there, and also to have those kind of message from people saying, "Hey, man, we love what you do. Keep going."
Yeah, super powerful. I mean, when you have a job like yours, which is to support and constantly be supporting, sometimes people forget that you also need support. And the question is, as much as you're supporting, who's supporting you? Who's helping you? And sometimes just messages like that can do it. They can be the little thing that says, "Oh yeah, my job is actually really significant." And Checo being in Formula One and doing well is not only good for Red Bull Racing and good for Formula One, but it's good for Mexico. So Mexico gets this amazing experience, and to have this figure like Sergio Perez that is doing his thing, and people can be inspired by that and live a more meaningful life just because somebody is really good at their thing, and then you being a support system to that amplifies it and makes you, like we said earlier, and you shared very well, is to feel like you belong to something bigger. And that's awesome. Well, Jo, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your insight. I learned a lot, and I can't wait for people to listen in. And I'll add all your details in the show notes so people can follow and see what you're doing. But yeah, thank you. I appreciate you very much.
Thank you very much, man. It was an honor, as I said at the beginning, to get to be 10 years ago and looking for your gym and maybe have a chance to talk to you, and now to being invited to your podcast. So I'm really, really thankful.
Well, life is beautiful, and that's really cool. Well, thank you so much. Until next time.
Freestyle way.